Welcome back, Cube Nation. Here we are for another Prep for Life Cube Nation live event. For those who've been looking forward to this, tonight we're talking about the difference between the Cube Elite and the Cube Select. We decided to have a little bit of fun with it tonight. We're gonna kind of do this in tongue-in-cheek with the current events that are happening tonight, being election night. And so we're going to have one candidate representing the Cube Select and one candidate representing the Cube Elite tonight. So we're going to have some fun with it and debate a little bit on the difference between the two. Let's introduce you to the characters tonight. I'm the Cube Elite, and I'm going to be telling you all the great things about the Cube Elite and why you should buy this one. And I'm the Cube Select, and everything I say will convince you that the Cube Select is the right one to buy. So tonight, as we go through this debate here, we're going to find out just which one is the right one for you. So let's get started a little bit with moderating. We're going to ask very first, I have to remember which hat I am. We're going to ask very first, the Cube Select. What is the most important part that you want to touch first? All right, I'm the Cube Select, and I'm here to tell you that you want to buy me because I have the square space technology. Do you know what that means? That means that I get more food in a square space in a more efficient cabinet. Why wouldn't you want that? Square space technology. Can anybody else tell you that? All right, Cube Elite, now's your chance to rebut. Well, actually, you know what? I have that too. The Cube Elite has square space technology. Same amount of food as you do, Cube Select. So what's the big deal? I can put a lot more food in a more efficient cabinet just the same as you can. All right, well, that was an interesting discussion. Pretty quick. They were fast to answer those. Now we're going to go and talk to Cube Elite and ask him what his best point is. Okay, I'm the Cube Elite. And guess what I have? I have mobile alerts. You know what the best part about that is? That is that I'm not a slave to my freeze dryer anymore because I get to just be wherever I am, and whenever the Cube needs me, it'll send me an alert, whether it needs me to put in the food, whether there's a problem, if there's been a power outage and it's come back on, if the cycle's done and the food is ready to come out, all of those things, the Cube tells me. That's amazing. Is there anybody else out there that can say the same? All right, Cube Select, your turn. What do you have to say about that? He thinks he's so much better than me. I have the same mobile alerts. In fact, they're just the same. So he's right. The mobile alerts are amazing. It makes freeze drying a so much better experience because now you're not a slave to the freeze dryer, it's a slave for you. It gets to tell you when it needs your attention, otherwise you just forget it. Well, this is a pretty interesting discussion so far. It appears that neither one is really gaining ground on the other. So we're going to go back to Cube Select this time, and we're going to ask Cube Select, we've been hearing about the Candy Express mode. There's been a lot of discussion out there about whether you can really do candy as fast as you claim, and do you have Candy Express mode? Well, thanks for asking. Candy Express mode, and now with the Candy Express Pro mode, you can dictate whatever you want as far as time and temperature in the freeze drying process. You can say whether you want to preheat or not, and the temperature and time you want to do that. Because there's lots of candies that you actually want to preheat before you start the freeze drying process. And if you preheat them right, the freeze drying happens really, really fast. Yeah, we've made lots of claims out there of being able to freeze dry candy in 30 minutes. We showed you in other videos, but that's the amazing part about the Candy Express Pro mode that the engineers at Prep for Life have made. So don't forget, Candy Express Pro mode in the Cube Select. Again, I ask you to challenge that. Well, that's a pretty big claim here. Cube Select is saying they've got all of these options for doing candy in their Candy Express Pro mode. Let's ask Cube Elite what he has to say about that. Well, again, Cube Select, you've picked something that I also can do. All of the same things that you just said, the Cube Elite can do too. And you're right. The claims out there of being able to freeze dry Skittles in 30 minutes, they're true. I've actually done it. So, why don't you try and find something I can't do? All right, here we are again. Voters at home, maybe you can see it's a pretty tight race so far. We're going to go now for the next question to Cube Elite and ask, tell us a little bit about sealing jars. We've heard about that. Okay, in the Cube Elite, you've got the option right inside the Cube freeze dryer to seal your jars of dry food. You put the jars in on the jar seal tray, you push the jar seal mode, press start, and 2.5 minutes later, all of your jars are sealed. Dry food only, but the mode is built right into the cube, so you don't have to worry about it. At the end of your cycles, you get rid of the ice, you load all of your jars, put your oxygen absorbers in, all of that. And then go seal up to 9 jars, quart jars at a time. I challenge Cube Select to tell me whether he can do that. All right, the challenge has been thrown. We're going to ask Cube Select if he has an answer to this. All right, I'm Cube Select, and I'm here to tell you, challenge accepted. I also can seal jars just like you can, Cube Elite. 2.5 minutes, I can seal all the jars that you've just created and make them so that you can store them for a long time, all inside the cube. You got to come up with something better than that. All right, we're going to have to up the game here in some of the questions we're asking. So let's talk about, where are you made? We're going to throw this one up to whoever raises their hand first. Oh, they both got it. So let's go Cube Select. All right, the Cube Select is built all here in Utah. The cabinet we build, the doors we make, the seals, the chambers, all of those things. There are a few components that we bring in, but we've got all the rest of the assembly, all the manufacturing, all the design happens here in Utah. So everything that you buy, we make right here. We are the manufacturer of the product. You can't get that from very many other places, even outside the freeze drying world. Okay, Cube Select has made a claim that they are made in the USA. I know that's an important topic in the world today. Let's ask Cube Elite. Ha! Cube Select, you think you got me there? I also am made in the USA. Every component, in fact, our components are the same. Why would you think that was different? Everything between the Cube Select and Cube Elite are still made here in the US. Proudly, we make them here in Utah in our factory. So, again, we've still been the same this whole time. Is there anything you're going to find that's different? All right, everybody at home, last question here. And then we'll have a bigger discussion about maybe what the differences are. Let's ask Cube Elite about moisture sensing. Oh, I'm glad you asked that question because yeah, one of the best things about the Cube is the patented moisture sensing technology. Nobody else out there that's manufacturing freeze dryers for the home market has put a moisture sensor in the chamber. We don't understand why, because that's what you're pulling out of the food. Why not measure it? And that's one of the reasons why our energy efficiency is so great. Because as we're measuring moisture, instead of other things that allow it to go kind of haywire while it's trying to decide whether it's dry or not, the moisture sensor inside the chamber helps us to keep all of those levels in the same place. So it's efficient while it's freeze drying. That's why we put the moisture sensor in there. Cube Select, what do you say? I think by now you've already figured out the answer to this question. The Cube Select still has the moisture sensor just like the Cube Elite. It's the same technology. It's amazing how we were able to get all of the same technology as the Cube Elite in the Cube Select. All right, Cube Nation, we've had this discussion here, and we've found that everything so far about the Cube, whether it's the Select or the Elite, is the same. All the same technologies they've claimed, and they've told us they're the same. So let's show you a comparison chart here. You can see here all of these components, many of them we've talked about tonight, are the same, right up until the bottom two. And that is the vacuum pump. So we're going to let the Cube Elite and the Cube Select tell you a little bit more about those differences in the pump. Okay, I'm the Cube Elite, and I have an internal oil-free pump. It is part of the patent from Prep for Life to have the pump hassle-free inside. One of the things we love about it is it's inside. You don't have to worry about it. We do know that it means it costs a little more, but all the technology that goes into that pump, we've just passed through so that you get the benefit of having that oil-free pump inside the cabinet. Again, one of the things we're proud about and one of the things we've patented in this process. Okay, in the Cube Select, I have an external oil pump. It has the same effect as the oil-free pump. It works the same. The freeze drying process is the same. The energy efficiency is the same. The difference is the external oil pump, which means it costs a little less as well. The difference between the two is the technology again in the pump. An oil pump costs less, but it still works the same as the Cube Elite. Okay, there you go, folks. The only difference between the Cube Elite and the Cube Select is the pump. That's it. All the rest of the technologies, and we've had this discussion before, but we keep getting questions as to why the difference? Why did you do one versus the other? Because we started out with the Cube Elite, and now we offer the Cube Select. And really the only difference is the price. And we offer that so that there's options for you out there, Cube Nation. So you might be able to do a Cube Select. You might be able to do a Cube Elite. Maybe both. Imagine that, sitting side by side. So when you're trying to decide which one is right for you, consider those small differences. Consider your budget. Consider what you're trying to do. If you're doing almost exclusively candy, maybe an oil pump is right for you because you don't have to change the oil after as many candy batches as you would, say, pineapple. If you're doing a lot of other foods and don't want to have the oil pump sitting outside your cabinet, maybe the Cube Elite is the right one for you. But you get to choose which one. So during all of this, we talked about moisture sensing, and actually we're going to check and make sure that we don't have any questions here. Not yet, but we're going to give it a minute. So we're going to talk about moisture sensing. And don't forget, Cube Nation, if you have any questions or comments, let us know. Send us a question. We'll answer it as we can if it applies to the topic. Moisture sensing. Why is it so important? Well, everybody else out there who's manufacturing freeze dryers in the home market, they have figured out different ways to try and determine whether the food is dry. Mostly it's with vacuum pressure, which is fairly inaccurate. So we decided to put in a moisture sensor, patented the process, and that makes it so we're a lot more confident telling you the food is dry when the end of the process comes. We know there's a lot of ways out there of pulling the tray out, weighing it, putting it back in, running it for another 6 hours, pull it out, weigh it, or maybe just at the end of the cycle, always add 12 hours. We know you've come up with a lot of ways around making sure that your food is dry. And that's still good practice to always, always, always make sure your food is dry before you package it up. But the moisture sensor in the Cube can help you do that sooner. When the moisture sensor says the food is dry, you can be a lot more confident thinking and knowing that the food is dry. There's always exceptions to every rule. But that's what's so important about the moisture sensing and the technology that goes into it. Beyond just the moisture sensor, though, our engineers spent hours and hours and days and weeks and months trying to get all the algorithms correct in the moisture sensor, dealing with the vacuum pressure and the heat and the cooling, all of that, so that the algorithm can watch the moisture and keep the output of the water from the food in the proper range to make it freeze dry at its optimal rate. That's what makes moisture sensing so important. So when you're out there looking and trying to figure out which freeze dryer is right for you, don't forget that moisture sensing is the thing that makes the Cube stand out almost more than any other project. All the other things, mobile alerts that we're proud of, the Squarespace technology that we've also put in our patent, the internal oil-free pump that we've also put in patent. Those things are important too. But don't forget the moisture sensing technology. We're going to check here. I've got some notifications. The question that we got here is, what is the maintenance on the oil-free pump? Okay, that's an easy one. The oil-free pump, internal, you likely will never see it in the time that you own your cube freeze dryer. But one of the things that the manufacturer has told us to do is after every batch, if it's a heavy one or several batches or whatever, just open the door, turn the vacuum pump on in the test mode, and for about 5 minutes, let it pull ambient air through. That helps get rid of some of the contaminants in the pump. And that's it. Now, let's talk about heat for just a moment, because we know this last summer was really hot in so many places. And people who have their cube in their garage, during the summer, I went out and measured in days that it was 100 degrees here in Utah, and we had quite a few of those this summer. I measured in my garage, and it typically was 115 to 130 degrees in my garage. Well, that temperature is a little high for me. I don't want to be in that temperature, but it also makes the cube run a lot less efficient, and it's hard on the vacuum pump as well. So if your cube sits in a non-air conditioned space, non-climate controlled space, pay attention to the heat, because the heat will affect the lifespan of the pump. And at those temperatures, it actually can void the warranty on the vacuum pump. We don't want to deal with that. So pay attention to the temperature that your cube is. I know that we all have our freezers sitting in our garages and trying to keep our food good. But I went out in those times when my garage was 130 degrees. I opened my freezer and I found that actually some of the ice was melting inside my freezer because it just wasn't keeping up. Now imagine trying to do that while heating, while vacuuming, all of that inside of a freeze dryer. It's not going to work. So maintenance for an oil-free pump, mostly just keep contaminants out of the chamber by cleaning it regularly. And every so often, open the door, turn the pump on, and let it run for a few minutes. Just pulling the air through will help keep the contaminants out of the inner workings of the vacuum pump. All right, let's check our questions here. So then also maintenance on an oil pump. So the Cube Select that has an oil pump, the maintenance of that, we recommend on regular food batches that you change the oil every 15 to 20 batches. If you're doing large batches of regular food. Candy, you could probably do double or triple that because you're not running near as long and there isn't as much water that you're pulling out of it. Again, heat is a factor. If you're trying to run the Cube Select in 130 degrees, that vacuum pump is also going to overheat. And at that point in time, you might actually see oil spewing out the top. Make sure that you change your oil, keep track of your batches. Eventually, if you don't change your oil, the cube will just take longer and longer and longer in each batch till finally the batches will just start to fail. So that's the maintenance of an oil pump. Change your oil every 15 to 20 batches. You can filter the oil, but we have found the best practice is to change it. Filtering it, you can do, but we recommend maybe filtering half your oil and filling the rest with new, rather than just going filtered oil. The filtered oil is not going to last as long the second time through because you can't get rid of all the contaminants in the water. Okay, let's check here. All right, the question that we had was, other manufacturers claim that they also measure the moisture. And I'm here to tell you, in the home freeze drying market, they aren't. They're measuring it by vacuum pressure. And if they have put a moisture sensor in it, we're going to have to go find out, because that's part of our patent, having a moisture sensor inside the chamber to measure and decide whether the food is dry or not. Nobody else is doing it. Everybody else has tried to do it with vacuum pressure, and it just isn't as efficient. So that's what everybody else is doing. Let's check here, see what else we have. All right, anybody who has last minute questions here, we have a few minutes left before we're gonna sign off. Send them in. But I will tell you a question that I had from a customer that called in just a couple of days ago and were asking about the cube, because they watched a video about one of the people who has the cube talking about the door concaving when the vacuum turns on. And I'm here to tell you it actually does. The vacuum pulls the center of the door in about 1/4 inch, which is why we have 3/4 inch acrylic. During all of the initial development of the cube, I wish we had footage of some of these things as we were applying vacuum to different parts of the cube, trying to make sure it was structurally sound, and things that failed gloriously. Things that made us all run and duck for cover. It was a little bit fun, I'll admit. It's kind of like blowing things up. But the question was about the door, is there a concern about it breaking? And I'm here to tell you, no, there is no concern about the door breaking. We've actually used doors that are cracked and chipped and partially broken in our warehouse to test, to run, reaching ultimate vacuum. This door is not going to break. Maybe if you take a sledgehammer to it. But if you do, make sure you take a video of it and send it to me, because I want to see it. Okay, let's see if we have anything else here. All right, Cube Nation. Here we are on election night. We've had our discussion about Cube Elite or Cube Select. Whichever one fits for your needs and your budget, that's the one that's right for you. I hope tonight, as all of the dust settles in our country about all the voting, everything that's going on, I hope in the end that just like the cube, we can all come together and find out that we actually have a lot of things together in common. That was part of the message tonight. The Cube Select and Cube Elite are far more alike than they are different. So whichever one is right for you, it only comes down to small differences. Remember to check in with us. Go to our website at p4lfood.com, learn all the news, go to our blog, see the recipes we put up there, and subscribe to our channel so that you know what's coming next. In 2 weeks, our topic is about holiday food. how to prep your holiday food using the cube, and how to store it afterwards. That one's going to be in the middle of the day, 2 weeks from today. We're going to set that out on our Facebook channels, Instagram, YouTube, everything. So watch for it. Figure out how to deal with your holiday foods. We'll see you next week, Cube Nation.